Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, our guest is April Brenneman. And April is a Somatic Spiritual Companion, a Hatha Yoga teacher, and an Embodied Spirituality Teacher. Her passion is for wholeness and healing, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. April understands that to be human is to be on a journey of continued growth and transformation. Her own spirituality can be described as earth spirituality and embodied contemplation. As an elder now, she wholeheartedly embraces her position as Wise Crone in society. April, welcome to Madness Cafe.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. As I already told you, this is my first podcast, so ta-da! Yeah.
We're excited to be your first.
Thank you. Yeah, and I listen to podcasts all the time, so it's nice.
So if you would please tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, oh, that's a long story.
Well, give us the fast version of the long story.
I'll give you a fast version of the long story. I grew up in the Christian church with some Pentecostalism, evangelicalism, and a little bit of fundamentalism when I was a mother as I went into the homeschooling arena. And I was just handed this belief system. And for whatever reason, actually, probably from the trauma of my childhood, I never really questioned it, right? I never really questioned or differentiated, or I just thought it was the truth. And I was told that the way to please God, as a young child, my desire, my longing was to please God. And I was told that the way to do that was to get married and have babies. That would be the way. I was told not to go to school, college, and get an education because that would just divert me from my purpose as a woman. So I did that, and I got married and I had 5 babies. I was very devout in my Christian faith and my evangelicalism. It seemed to meet my needs at that time in my development. And then in 2004, when my youngest child was 4 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer. And that was like literally for me, it felt like the rug from under my feet was ripped out from under me. And everything that I believed and thought of how the world worked and what the divine was or wasn't, all came into question. Because in the evangelical church and what I took in from all of my training and childhood was that there were formulas to follow. So if you just followed these formulas, God would bless you. You would have this abundant life. You would have prosperity. You would have beautiful, healthy children who would, follow after the Lord. So this was a shock because we were doing everything right. My husband was in ministry. I was homeschooling, keeping my children out of those dangerous secular schools and teaching them about God and reading God's word. So that was the beginning of my journey. That was when I was 44. He was diagnosed with cancer. That was about a decade of really dark years. I wrestled. I was angry. I was full of fear. I didn't understand what was going on. And my trauma from my childhood really came up strongly in that hypervigilance, and not trusting anyone, not trusting the medical system. I was, just on edge and anxious, and it was a very difficult time. There's nothing like watching your child suffer. And when you think about, I know we've made so many medical advances, but it's still very barbaric, the way that cancer is treated. And in a little 4-year-old guy who doesn't understand what's going on. So
I feel like crying with you right now.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It's so hard to watch them. Yeah, I can remember one moment where we were down in California doing a certain kind of radiation that he needed. My son's tumor was in his neck, C6 neck vertebra. And so he needed all this chemotherapy and he needed radiation. And we went for this specific kind of radiation. And we were there about a month and a half in California for the treatments. And that's where he was the most depleted. He had lost over 50% of his body weight. He was totally bald, very, very pale, and he couldn't do anything. He laid in bed on morphine because he was in so much pain from the radiation, which really damaged his airway and his throat. One of our daughters was there visiting, and my husband took her off to go do something fun. They went to Legoland. And I remember sitting in that apartment by myself. He was in the other room trying to sleep, my little guy. And I was sitting on the couch, and that's back when I drank alcohol. I don't drink anymore, but I had a big old glass of red wine. And I sat there on the couch just weeping and weeping. And I could see the shadows move across the room from the sun setting. So as the sun was moving, I watched these shadows just creep across the living room. And all of a sudden I heard, this is what it is to be alive. This is what
Wow.
it is to be human.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And yeah, and in that moment I realized, oh, suffering is a part of life too. This is a part of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I picked up the message that it was all going to be good,
Mm-hmm.
do the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning. And then when my son finished his treatment, there was a lot of fallout. So he had to have a tracheostomy placed, which he still has today. So he survived. He'll be 24 in June.
Yay.
Yeah. And so he has a hole here that he breathes through because the radiation damaged his airway. And then he also had damage to his throat. So we went through about 3.5 years of going in every 6 weeks to stretch or dilate his throat. So we fed him through a little tube in his belly, a G tube, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually he was able to eat by mouth and not have to keep doing that. You know, it drug on. I call it the dark night of my soul. It was about a decade of time. And so now I'm in my early 50s, and I had met a spiritual director who was so gracious to allow me to ask questions, to think outside of the box, to explore spiritually. She just held such lovely, gracious space for me. And then I just began to blossom in my spirituality. And I also began to investigate the trauma from my childhood, question all that I was taught, and yeah, doing that work, which is a lifelong journey, actually. So that's what happened. And I found that yoga was helpful to be in my body. I went to the living school where I learned about Christian mystics and Buddhism and social justice. Now I'm studying somatics and embodiment too. So I found it all so helpful.
You know, you mentioned yoga, and I remember reading, I can't remember if it was on your blog or on Substack, but you talked about doing yoga and studying to become a yoga teacher, and members of your family thinking that yoga was evil.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that kind of goes hand in hand with how they maybe were reacting to you questioning the theology that you were raised in. Can you talk a little bit about how your questioning affected the people around you?
Yeah, it's been really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Been really tender. I have lost friendships. I stepped away from the church. I could no longer go to church because it felt like nails on a chalkboard, and the dissonance in my body.
Mhm.
was extreme. A number of people in my family were very concerned that I was going away from the faith, that I was
Mhm.
becoming a heretic or getting lost. You're being
Mm.
lost.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
lost from the faith. So yeah, that has been very hard to navigate, and I'm still navigating it.
Mm.
In many areas, I've had to have really big boundaries with people.
Ah,
Um, and because I still love them, but I need to have a boundary to keep myself safe.
right.
So I've had to do that. But also, I know that this is my journey. I know that I am worthy. I know that I trust in the unfolding of what is happening. I trust in the divine unfolding, and we're all evolving. Some
Yep.
people really feel safe in their box, and that's
Mhm.
okay for them because I was there for a long time. I get that. I get that. But for me, I'm out of that box.
Yeah.
And it feels so liberating, and it feels so freeing.
That's
So
fantastic.
Yeah.
What is a somatic spiritual companion?
yeah, that's a good question. Yes. So there's a spiritual director, which is a person that basically walks alongside another person in their spiritual journey. So this is what I had for 8 years with a wonderful woman named Kathy. I don't like the word director because it's like you're telling them where to go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
So is it kind of like a mentor?
it can be like a mentor, but more like a companion. I mean,
Okay.
how do you explain it? It is that you're walking alongside that person and they're
Okay.
coming to you, and I have one-on-one Zoom meetings with them, or they come into this room here. And I'm just listening. I'm listening with my whole body. I'm asking those deep evocative questions that come up. And the somatic part is what I've added because embodiment and somatics are so important to me. You can see I move a lot, but it's because I'm feeling my sitting bones right now. I'm feeling my feet on the earth. That helps me to stay present. And I guess I would say it's a person who is very present. They have time, their time with you is with presence, and they're
Mm.
deeply listening. And usually what happens is the person knows, right? They might be in a conundrum or a place where they're confused and they don't have clarity, but in their body, they know the truth. And so
Mhm.
it is listening and helping to allow that to emerge. It's trusting again that unfolding of the divine, or whatever you want to call it, living presence, divine life force,
Mhm.
trust life force. And so that's what it is.
well, you said when you were talking about your transformation that you could no longer walk into a church, you felt it in your body. What, for those of us who are still working on embodiment, how did you identify what were you feeling in your body, and how did you know that that was the message you were getting?
Yeah, that's a good question. How did I know too? Well, that swirling sensation, that uncomfortable feeling inside of you. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
experienced that. It's not really anxiety. I know the difference between anxiety and excitement, but it's a feeling that something isn't right here. And, we all have our nervous systems, and our nervous systems were made to connect through our nervous systems. And
Mhm.
right now we're connecting nervous system to nervous system. And so as I would hear the preaching, which I'd heard a billion times before, and the interpretation of the scriptures and the way that they were turning it
Mhm.
to mean what they believe is truth, I could just feel that turning in my body and that twisting. And I listened to it because what would happen then is on the way home with my husband, we would get into an argument. So, I was like, well, what did you think of the sermon? So, this is another piece of it, it causes this conflict that I didn't feel I wanted to keep stepping into that space of that conflict. And so I just decided that I was going to not attend church anymore. And it really opened things up to feel that freedom and relaxed. And also the feeling of knowing that my feet are on the earth, that grounded feeling, knowing that I am standing in my truth. This no longer works for me.
Mhm.
This no
Ah,
longer speaks to me. This is no longer where I am. And I need to not be static and to listen to where I'm being called.
nice.
Is it maybe that God isn't just in a church? God isn't just in one building. You
Absolutely.
can have your relationship with God or faith or source, goddess, whatever you want to call it. You can have your relationship with that wherever you are.
Absolutely. Every moment and every second of the day.
Mhm,
For me, nature and the
Mm,
earth
mhm,
and nature call me so deeply. When I'm feeling undone, I just go out for a walk, or even just looking at my window here, looking at a tree or watching a squirrel or the birds at the bird feeder helps me to really settle and to feel the stability of the earth, the holding of the earth. And that's another part of my healing is from my childhood. The times and my memories of feeling really loved and held was in nature. When I would
mm.
be up in a tree and I remember one time falling in love with an inchworm. I mean, I loved that inchworm with every ounce of my being. And when I look back now, it's like, oh, that was the divine. That was source,
mhm.
holding me and loving me. I fell in love with an octopus at this aquarium where you could put your hand in
Oh,
to
yeah.
octopus. And he or she wrapped the tentacle around me and then started turning all these colors. And I was just like communing with this octopus. It was just a beautiful experience. So I've come back to that earth love. And this is, you had a guest on that was talking about panentheism.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
That is panentheism. The
Yeah.
belief that all of it is held together in love in the divine. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you and I met at the GERI, the Gender Equity Reconciliation International conference that we went to. And I remember having a conversation with you about the gender of God and growing up thinking that God was perhaps a masculine force. How has that changed for you?
Oh my goodness, God is. I pray to Mama. Yes, I think, when I look at the Abrahamic religions, other religions and belief systems have goddesses, and
Mhm,
the Abrahamic faiths, for whatever reason, the female has been eradicated, really is what it feels like. Now, I know there's
mhm,
feminist and womanist theologians who do a lot of deep diving into all of that, and they're still in the Christian faith. But for me, yeah, the whole feminine was missing.
mhm,
And when you're a child, when you're a young girl and you're looking at God, you don't see that representation of yourself. There's no representation of female. If she
mhm.
is, it's the mother of Jesus or Mary Magdalene, maybe some of the women of the Bible, but it's very, very patriarchal. And so that, I forgot what your question was, but go ahead.
I was just thinking, how did your perception of God change in regards to having a patriarchal God and then perhaps inviting the divine feminine into your life?
It changed everything. And it slowly blossomed over time as I was working with my spiritual mentor, Kathy. And she would bring up those evocative questions about, well, is God only male? And it absolutely impacted my whole well-being because of my lack of self-worth, right?
Mhm,
My self-esteem can now blossom and be full because there is the feminine of God. God is actually, I see God as neither male or female, but both together.
Yeah.
But I lean more right now as part of my healing towards the feminine because that resonates with me. And I know there's divine masculine too, but there's so much toxic masculinity that it's hard to find. There are men in my life that I know that are not toxic masculine, and so I can see the divine there. But yes, it's a lot more of what I call the freedom, what I've said before, just that freedom that you
It's
feel.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, and beautiful to remember there is a divine masculine. We're just not really seeing a whole lot of it right now, but it does exist.
Yes,
Does exist.
it does exist. And one of the people that is divine masculine for me is a friend who is a gay man. And sometimes I see or think that that is, that there's the feminine in him, like he's welcoming the feminine.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of fear for men of the feminine. And so they want to tamp that down in themselves, because that's not what masculine is, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
As I'm listening to you talk about this and your journey and questioning and your growth, yes, definitely that was for you was sparked by your son's illness, but it makes me think that hopefully as we get older we start to question and learn and hopefully become wiser and continue to learn. And you've spoken before about, or, in your writing, and I mentioned it in your introduction about the wisdom of the crone.
Ooh,
Yeah.
And you from what I've read, it seems to me that you are embracing that, right? Like it's not this, you know, negative stereotype or horrible caricature that, we see in like movies and cartoons and that sort of thing. So I would love it if you would talk about the crone and, your journey and the gathering of wisdom as you embrace the crone phase of your life.
Yeah, that's really good. Yes, the crone has been, demeaned. And
Mm,
if you look under what patriarchy defines it as an ugly old woman, right?
mhm,
mhm.
Or there's a hag or all that, because everything is so centered on the visibility of a beautiful young maiden.
mhm.
You have to be virgin. It's all for the male's benefit, right?
Yep,
It's
yep.
for that toxic masculinity. So I'm embracing it. It feels countercultural, right? I mean, I'm aging. We're all aging.
Yeah.
And there's a woman that I know, she says, I want to age lively. And I thought, ooh, I really like that. But I'm embracing the crone because I am wise. I have seen a lot of shit in my life.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a lot of experiences that I've been
Mhm.
through, a lot
Mhm.
of trauma. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, and you've endured all of it.
And I've endured all of it. And it has made me who I am now in this place in my life, in this. And it's not that I have all the answers. Wisdom doesn't mean that you have all the answers and that you tell people what to do. It's a way of being in the world where you feel the divine in you, you feel the wisdom in you, you embrace your, gray hair, you embrace your wrinkles, and all those limitations, the ways that you notice your body aging, all the things that you go through. But when I go out into the world, I want that light. It's a light, it's a wise light that is shining, and I want to interact with people on that level. And again, not telling them what to do, but I have that wisdom in me, and I
Mhm.
and imparting it. Now my daughters and my son, they're all adults. They love it, and they will call me for, just to talk about things. And it's not that, again, I'm not really giving them advice, but they'll share and about their life, their sexual life, their jobs, all of that, their child raising. And I'm able to listen and then speak into that in a wise way and ask questions and be curious. So it's really countercultural. I'm kind of saying stick it to the patriarchy.
I love that so much.
I
Yeah.
think we're going to call this episode Stick It to the Patriarchy.
Absolutely. Oh,
That's
man.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. You know, it's like you're holding space for your kids
Mhm.
as adults.
Mhm.
In a similar way, it sounds like that you hold space for the people that you are a spiritual companion for.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think I do that. I think I do that. And there are people who don't want that. So, I can sense into that and back
Eh,
away. It's like,
it's
okay.
it's their loss.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's kind. Yeah, it feels threatening. It can feel threatening, I think,
Mm,
to some people, possibly.
mhm, mhm.
So I have to honor that. It's where they are.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that a little bit about who doesn't want space held for them. But I
Mm.
also think that hold on one second and
Sure,
then
sure.
I also think that's what holding space is one of those, it's like a buzzword now. It's being used all over the place. And for a while, I don't think I even understood what holding space really meant because I would be one, and I'm still working on this, to quickly give advice.
Mhm.
Right? That's not holding space. What were you going to
Yep,
say, Raquel?
same, same.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no problem at all. No, but what I was thinking is that, I mean, yeah, I can understand that some people don't want it because maybe it's bringing up something for them that they aren't ready to address yet.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And they aren't comfortable with that yet, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's what I meant by it feels threatening. And
Mhm,
some people don't want to be seen. When you're present with someone, you're seeing them, and that can feel threatening too, especially if someone has a lot of trauma.
mhm,
Um, but holding space is being present for them, and it's also very, very, very different than that fix it energy. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about fixing, and
mhm.
it's about helping people to sit in that uncomfortable place.
Ugh,
It
that's not
feels
easy.
uncomfortable.
Ugh, she
But
says.
yes,
That is not easy.
I know it isn't. But when you have a companion there who's supporting you and
Mhm,
you're in that uncomfortable place, they're with you in that. They're with you in that. And so in the somatic work and somatic experiencing, if I was in the room with the person and they're in that really uncomfortable place, I can just ask if can I put my foot next to your foot? Can I just touch my foot next to your foot so that you know that I'm here? And I've said that on Zoom before too. Just can you imagine my foot? I know this is really uncomfortable right now. Can you imagine my foot just being with you? I'm with you in this. I'm here with you. So that the person is not alone in whatever it is that they're working through or whatever is emerging in that moment.
oh, I felt that.
Mm,
That was lovely.
yeah.
That's just such a sweet sentiment that, you know, just imagine my foot just being next to yours. You
Mhm.
know, you're not encroaching on somebody's space,
Mhm.
but you're being respectful of, the space around them, and
Mhm.
you're asking for consent
Yes.
Yeah,
to
we love
just be
consent
there.
around
Yeah, we
here.
do. Yeah, we do. And it's
Consent
just,
is crucial. Yes.
yeah, and it's just such a lovely way to be with someone
Yeah.
as they're going through whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah. And we're not alone. And it's whatever they're going through is other people have gone through, like
Mhm,
there's universality in a lot of our journeys and experiences.
mhm.
Yeah. So it's very precious.
Can we step back just a second? You said something a minute ago about the fix it energy. I think I have spent a large part of my adulthood and parenthood thinking I was the fixer of other people's issues. I mean, Raquel, I think we all is it not a
Yeah.
woman's role in our society? Is it not a woman's
Mhm,
role to be the
mhm.
fixer?
Yep.
And then someone asked me, and maybe you can speak to this, April, someone asked me, how would you like to be fixed?
Mm.
And it completely changed it for me.
Mhm.
If we're not fixing, what are we doing?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Because it's
Hold on, I'm ready to take notes.
right. Because
I'm not kidding.
because it isn't the real feminine energy to fix, but it's what our society told us was our
Yeah.
feminine energy.
Mhm.
So to be fixed means there's something wrong with you.
Bingo.
There
And
we
there's
go.
nothing wrong with you. You're a beautiful, precious human being.
Thank you, April.
Yeah, both of you are. Everyone
Thank
is.
you.
And we all have our past and our traumas and our, all the things that come up and that impact us and how we are in the world and our hard things that we go through. And it's allowing the unfolding of what's happening. I mean, if someone is having suicidal ideation, that's a different story, right?
Right.
But it's allowing the unfolding and for them to find the wisdom within themselves. They have that in their body. They know it. It's unconscious. It's, not clear at this moment, but it will. It's like trusting that life force and that wisdom to emerge. And it isn't a quick thing, right? It isn't a quick, like one and done. It's slow and it takes time and it builds on itself. It builds and it builds. So when I'm working with a client or companioning someone, it's just a little bit each time. There's a little bit each time, a little bit each time. And the person becomes, and this is what happened for me, became more and more confident in, oh, I know, I have the wisdom within me. If I learn to sit and listen and feel my sits bones and feel that I'm grounded on the earth and am just patient, it will come. The wisdom will come. But we don't want to fix because there's nothing wrong.
Mm,
Really.
yes.
Uh,
That whole fix it energy, wherever we got that from, fix it, fix ourselves. We're like constantly trying to fix ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in that comes a lot of compassion work for ourselves. And
Yeah.
a lot of that child work, like, well, of course you feel that way. Remember when you were a child, and then bringing compassion to that moment. There might be a memory or something, and compassion for yourself when you screw up. Compassion. I'm gonna mess up. I'm a human. I'm gonna yell at somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Or flip somebody off when I'm driving. Like that's gonna happen. But then bringing back the compassion and just knowing that I think with the fix it energy, there's something wrong with you and there's no compassion in that.
Right.
Yeah. Something's wrong. Yeah. And we believe that about ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the compassion part of this conversation is making me think about empathy.
Mm.
And you wrote, I apologize, I don't remember if you wrote about it on Substack or on your blog, because I literally read all the things.
Oh,
So it's in there somewhere. But you talked about the anti-empathy movement.
yes. It's very big in the evangelical church of some subcultures of the evangelical church. Yeah.
Which seems so
Yeah.
bonkers to me.
What
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah, can you talk to that a little bit? I mean, April, because it just boggles my mind that anyone would be against empathy.
Yes, because they see it. So it's very patriarchal,
Mhm.
these subcultures of churches. I mean, there's different gradations, right, of
Sure.
patriarchy. So it's a very overt patriarchal system that's
Mhm.
coming out against empathy. And how they are seeing it is that it's like a pass for people to be fuck ups, right?
Mm.
You're not holding them accountable. You're not holding them responsible when that isn't what empathy means. Because what's happening with those pastors that are teaching that is they're not able to look at their own shit.
Mhm.
not able to look at their
Mhm.
own stuff.
I have to clap at
Mhm.
everything you say today. Look at your own shit, people. Look at your own shit.
Yeah. So when we can't reflect in our own self, because empathy does not mean that I don't have boundaries with people. I
Yeah.
had a client just the other day she's new, and we've been trying to meet, and we were going to meet on Zoom, and she is in trauma upon trauma upon trauma. Her job is traumatic, everything. And so she didn't show up, right? She never shows up. And I understand that she's in this swirl, and I also have empathy for her, but I'm also going to have boundaries. So
Yes.
when he tried to say, well, we can talk later in the day, I was like, no, I'm with my grandsons now. We had this window of time.
Mhm.
So I think they have a very misguided understanding of what empathy means. And again, they're not looking at themselves, and they're probably more, should be careful what I say. There's
I'll
10.
say it.
Okay, say it.
Maybe they're not understanding it on purpose.
Yeah, they might.
Empathy.
Yeah,
So
because
are they thinking of
Because
empathy?
well, it's political buzzwords,
Well,
if
yeah.
okay, go ahead.
But are they thinking, or maybe trying to couch this as some sort of like, oh, this is tough love?
they didn't use tough love. Yeah, I mean, they are in a box where you have to perform and do everything right.
Mhm.
Yep.
And go ahead, Jen.
I think it's back to that rule structure you were
Yes.
talking about at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Mhm.
We're not following the structure. We have to hold, if you have too much empathy for someone, they're not going to follow those. We can't let them out of the structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the tough love is a good word for that too.
Mhm.
They you gotta, they're wanting to keep people in this little tiny box of how to behave and how to be, and we don't fit into those boxes.
Mm-mm.
That is high control religion, and human beings were not meant to be in these tiny little boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This makes I'm sorry, I'm just asking all kinds of questions today that I'm like, well, I'm getting a chance to ask all these questions that I
It's a
didn't get to ask as a
podcast.
kid.
It's a
So,
podcast.
yeah,
Ask
yeah,
away.
yeah. So, okay. So with evangelicalism, there's the isolation and trying to protect people from the world, and there's the juxtaposition of godliness versus worldliness, and I don't get it. Like there's a disconnect for me, because if two things, if God created the world, why don't you want to be of it? And two, if everything is so right and and perfect about evangelicalism, why are they so worried about being out in the world? Do they, I mean, I guess they just don't really believe it's all that great because they're afraid somebody's gonna like prove them wrong. Like I yeah, this is something that I struggle with organized religion and have always struggled with. So I apologize, April, but you're fielding my question today, or I'm at least asking, I'm requesting kindly that you field my question today.
Oh, yeah, certainly. That's a good question, actually. And I've thought a lot about that. So, and I can speak to myself,
Okay.
my experience. It was safe. So being in the church and in those rules and living that way felt very, very safe, because you knew that if you did this, then this, you knew the expectations. Now, the world, you were supposed to go out and try to save souls and save
Hmm.
people because they're lost. And also, for me, in my experience, I was taught a lot about demons and Satan, which was for
Oh,
Mm,
I teach our children this as young kids. It's religious trauma. It's spiritual trauma. And I
hmm.
was traumatized by that. So anything outside of the church, anybody who wasn't a Christian, they were going to hell. They could be demonic, they could be satanic, it was all, so there's that evil, it's an us versus them mentality.
Mhm.
And anybody outside of us is not safe. And so I was safe in that box. But
Got it.
once you break out of the box, you're like, holy moly, this is a gorgeous world. Like this is incredible. There's incredible people out here. There's incredible love because of course the divine is in all of it.
Mhm.
So yeah. So that's the only thing I can say for me. It was about safety, and that safety
Okay.
was a huge need for me because of my traumatic childhood and
Right.
because of volatile childhood. So I was safe with all those little rules and in that box. And then I wanted to keep my kids in there because so they could be safe, I didn't want anything to happen to them, and you have to keep them pure sexually, and you have to,
Which
teach
is a
all
whole nother hour long podcast. I just love you so much, April. Was
everything.
there anything you wanted to tell our audience that you didn't have the chance to?
Life is about growing and evolving. And what even I share right here in this podcast 5 years from now might be different.
Mhm.
So it's being open. It's about an open heart and an open mind. And it's about allowing yourself to grow and learn and evolve. That's the life force. And I hope I do that to the day I die. I hope that I'm always learning and growing. Yeah.
What a
How do
lovely sentiment.
how do people get a hold of you if they want to work with you, read your writing? Because your writing is good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That really speaks to me because I have a lot of struggles with believing that. So thank you for saying that to me.
Oh my
That
gosh,
I
it's
don't
so
ever
good.
receive
Yeah, it
that.
really is.
Receive that. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'm receiving it right now.
Okay, good.
I think I gave you my email address, aprilbrenneman.gmail. You can reach me that way. I love working with people who are questioning, who are leaving high control religions or evangelicalism, or who just are wondering about their own spirituality, because it isn't anything set in stone, right? And it's just that exploration. I'm on Instagram. The Contemplative Space is my little business, Contemplative Space LLC. And what else? I guess, and then I write on Substack, the Contemplative Space as well. Yeah.
And I'll put links to all of that in the show notes.
Thank
So
you.
if anybody didn't write all that down, it's okay. Don't worry. It's in the show notes.
Good. Oh, thank you both so much. It's just had been a pleasure. It's been so fun. I can't believe the hour went by.
It went by like that, didn't
Yeah,
it?
it really did.
I could have asked
Such a
100
joy
more
talking
things.
to you. I know, exactly. Like I have this list, but yeah, it's such a joy talking to you, April. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, recap.
Yeah, what a beautiful soul
Mm,
April is.
I fell in love with her right away.
Right? Like how could you
Yeah.
not? I mean, I just think the transition of going from somebody who's in a high control religion to where she is now, where she actively holds space for other people to go through their version of what she went through, of questioning and transforming and examining their beliefs and examining the world around them, and to be there with them and let them know that they're not alone in going through that. And I just that's just such a beautiful, generous thing. I just think that's just so beautiful. And there's so many people going through the world feeling so alone in whatever it is that they're going through, whether it's, one part of their existence or their entire existence or whatever, but to know that there's people out there who literally will be with them in their journey and to hold space for them is such a beautiful it's just such a beautiful act.
Well, as I said already, I met April at the Jerry conference that I went to after the podcast we did with Cynthia Bricks and William Keepin.
Mhm,
And during that workshop, the very first day, we drew names from a jar.
mhm,
And the name on the jar was your secret person. And you were supposed to, without this person knowing it, send this person love vibes, support, kind of take care of them through the whole workshop, but
mhm.
kind of just spiritually, not like we weren't supposed. It's kind of like a secret Santa
Yeah,
in a way,
exactly.
right? And it turns out that April drew my name, and she was taking care of me through the whole workshop, and
Oh.
that was pretty cool. And other than that,
Mhm,
we really had some nice conversations and some nice walks, and we had talked a little bit about her son and his experience, and we talked a lot about finding the divine feminine. Part of the
mhm,
reason I went to that workshop was looking for the divine feminine. But one of the things that really resonates with me today is about stepping into this role of the crone.
mhm,
And because when I met April, my first thought was like, whoa, she has it going on. She's stylish. She has
mhm,
the jewelry. She sparkles, her eyes twinkle. I
mhm.
was like, crone would have not been the word I would have used to describe her.
Yeah, yeah.
But now that she's kind of explained it and embodied it, crone is a beautiful word.
Mhm,
And the acceptance of crone, but bigger than like that, the embodiment of crone, the celebration of crone. We
mhm,
freaking deserve to be the crone.
mhm,
We have worked so hard. She has worked so hard. What a beautiful switch of words from, oh, we're old, we're postmenopausal, we're going to go out into the pasture. Now it's
mhm,
like the embodiment of the crone.
mhm. The embodiment of the experiences that we've had and that we continue to have. It's not like we're, we get to whatever age and life is done.
Oh,
We're
hell no.
still living. We're still learning.
Right,
We're
right,
still experiencing life.
right. If anyone needs to work with a somatic coach and to have, what was her words? A somatic spiritual companion,
Hmm.
April's your woman.
Hmm. Yeah. And just from listening to April today and from reading April's work, it's not like April's going to steer you toward one thing or another. She's holding space for you to ask and answer and your own questions and to find your own answers and to reach your own outcomes. Whatever spiritual questioning you're doing, doesn't matter. You can work with April. I think it comes through in the interview today that April is a very warm and open soul. So take the chance and work with April. If you can't, for whatever reason, if you're not in a spot where you can work with April right now, for whatever reason, read April's work. And like I said, I will put the links to April's writing and to her Substack and her website and her Instagram and all the things on there. And you will that comes through in her writing.
Yeah. Yep.
What a lovely discussion today.
Yeah, it
Thank you,
was.
Jennifer.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, listeners, for listening along.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.